This can be a voiceover narrative. Polaris Ranger 500 up on the hillbilly hoist, my Kubota, blocks under it. Got a CV boot repair. Both sides, the outer boots are torn. Need to get them replaced. You can see there where the tear is. I'm going to leave that mud guard on, I believe, debris guard, and I'm going to take the inner one off. To dismantle the upper and lower control arms on this. Take the brake assembly off the hub assembly to free it up enough to get to pop the axle out. Not a terribly hard job, but a dirty one. We'll see how it goes. Okay, in this section, you can see I've got the inner splash guard removed. It's the axle, driver side axle leading up to the front housing of the gear case. That U-joint and spline assembly, it's all held in there by a snap ring internal. Once you've taken everything off the strut end of it, you push in and give it a real sharp tug out, straight out, and it pops right out, slicker than a whistle. I was extremely satisfied. Okay, in this section, I have removed the 2.5-inch bolts that hold the brake pad assembly on. I've not had this apart before. There was no red Loctite on them, but man, they were retard tight. They finally snapped loose. I was happy. Once you pull that off, that will leave your disc assembly still on. It's got a pin and a castle nut on the end of it. It should pop right off. I did leave the outer debris shield on. It's not going to be in the way. So get to that in a minute. Upper control arm. Got to pull the pin, get the nut off there. Same thing for the lower A arm. As you can see, they're covered in dirt right now. I'm going to spray it down good with some brake and parts cleaner and go from there. I'll see you in the next section. Okay, in this section, I went ahead and removed the brake pad assembly. I also removed the bolt holding the hanger off the strut arm. I moved it up high there to get it up out of the way and to release stress on any of the metal fittings at the assembly itself, just so I didn't bend them, break them, or kink them. Anyway, move on to what's next then. Okay, in this section, I've pulled the pin on the axle. I got the castle nut broke loose. I had to use a pry bar between two studs, along with a breaker bar on the nut itself. It popped and it's coming right off. Some of my lug nuts are showing some wear and tear. Leaks in the tires, having to pull them, get them fixed and whatnot. So going to order some new lug nuts before something terrible happens. I'll round one off and I really do have a problem. Anyway, this is moving right along and it's going pretty smooth. I'm a happy camper so far. I hope it stays that way. Okay, in this section you can see that disc assembly's been removed. It slid right off. Just amazingly easy. I was very happy. No signs of the biting or wear or problems visible thus far, so that was great. The lower, the A-frame, I got to get the pin pulled on it, get that nut broke loose, and then get that thing broke loose, probably with a fork. And then the upper control arm, same thing, get it broke loose and go from there. I'll be using a dead weight hammer, plastic, so I don't bust or break or bend anything. It's going pretty smooth. Okay, in this section you'll see that I've got the pin pulled on the lower A-frame, got the bolt broke loose. It's going along still smooth. Uh, Still in the axle, still inside the assembly. Next, I got to pull the pin and get the bolt broke loose on the control arm. Haven't encountered any major problems yet. That's good. Okay, I got the upper control arm broke loose, separated away. It's, I think a 15 millimeter wrench on top with a 17 deep socket on the bottom is what it took to get that off, I think. The bottom, the A-frame, I have to get my pickle fork, drive it in there and bust that one loose. So that's what ended up having to happen. I'll see you in the next section. Okay, in this section you can see I've got the lower A-frame broke loose. I had to take a pickle fork to it, but it popped loose without damaging anything, that being the key component to this. Now the strut assembly is now free and clear. Of the axle. Everything looks really good inside. The bearing looks good, chase looks good. I'm extremely happy so far. So, not very many colorful metaphors yet. Okay, in this section you can see I've got the axle completely removed from the machine. That's the housing end, and that's the wheel end. There's the boot, and there's the clamps on the boot, the upper and lower. Those are the automotive style clamps. You squeeze them, you squeeze them together, and they fit up over the tabs. They're really nice. They're what I prefer. To use them, you usually have to have a special tool. You can use a side crimps. I use a horseshoers. Yeah, it's a horseshoers tool. It works great. There's my CDs. I'm currently listening to Beatles Anthology, 6 CD set. So you're missing out on that in the background because the didn't record. Okay, in this section we're still at the workbench. I got the clamps removed from the boot. I got the boot removed. Just cut it off. It's junk. No reason to be gentle with it. There's the CV. It's in really good shape. There's the axle, driver's side axle. That's the wheel end, of course, where the boot will go on, and that's the differential end, the front differential, front housing end. So to get started on this, get it cleaned up, and get the new CV kit out, get the boot on, and we should be good to go. Okay, in this section, just going to show you the kit real quick. That's the new boot. These are the clamps that came with it, with the little clamping tool. They're cheap clamps, cheap tool. I don't like them. I like the other style better. Little bag of grease. Not much to it. Okay, in this section, I've got the new boot slid on. The CV I have packed full of grease, just using the old hands, packing it in, packing it in, packing it in, and then whatever's left over just got globbed that on top. It'll line the splines up and snap that back together, and it'll lock in, and should be good to go. There's a grease zerd on the other end. I'm going to grease that up before we get it reinstalled into the machine. Again, I prefer the other style clamp. I don't like these that came with it. Don't care for them at all. They're junk. Okay, in this section I got the CV put back together on the axle. and I got the bands put on. I did not like these bands. I still don't like these bands. That's the greaser at the other end. I use a 3/8 socket on like a 1/4 inch driver with that little gizmo, and it ratchets the band tight, and you fold it back over and bend some tabs over, then tap it down with a hammer to keep them tight. Trash. I prefer the automotive style like this one. You clamp it, it goes over the tabs, and it's there to stay. I just don't care for these other ones at all. Not worth a damn. Okay, in this section you'll see I've got it all buttoned back up. There's the new boot, axle's installed, brakes are back on. This went really smooth. Very happy. I credit it to a blessing and the excellent music that I worked by. Anyway, I hope the next side is as easy. On to the passenger side. Okay, in this section, back at the workbench with the passenger side, you can tell that the new boot is on the passenger side, and those glorified bands or clamps. Anyway, I got it all put back together and was messing with it, and it's stiff. It doesn't rotate easy at all. I don't know whether there's I didn't get quite all the grease out, so it's my fault. I didn't get quite all the grease out. That thing should be wobbling around on there like a bobblehead, and it's not. So I don't know if there's some grit in the old grease the ball bearings are hanging up on or what. So went to Walmart, got 4 cans of Super Tech parts brake cleaner. I'm going to take her back apart, and I'm going to clean this thing till hell won't have it. And then I'm going to pack her back up good with marine grease and go. Okay, in this section I've got the CV torn apart, completely clean. There's the ball bearings. There's the CV, the cup, the milling for the ball bearings. There was no signs of mechanical wear or failure inside it or the race for the bearings, the inner race, the outer race. You saw the mill points on the cup of the CV. What happens is you place the race without the ball bearings, you place it in there, and you angle it, you pivot it up, and you line up a hole on the outer race to one of the milled spots for the ball bearing. You drop the ball bearing in, and then you go across star pattern, and you crisscross till you get all 6 of them in, and it gimbals in there, which allows the movement, the axle to move freely. Once it's packed with grease, that is. Okay, in this section, I've got the race put back in the cup of the CV, minus the ball bearings. I'll start putting those in. In this section, I wanted to clarify. I misspoke. When you start with the 2 bearings on one side, 2 balls on one side, and then you crisscross over. This is what I was talking about. You see how you line everything up, pop the ball in, and then it just slides down through the milling. So I've got the 2 started there. I'll rotate it. I'll go to the opposite side. I'll gimbal it up, put another one in, and just work my way around. This was a one-handed attempt to put the last ball in and film it at the same time. I don't have a nice tripod for the camera, so anyway, I tried. It failed. Let's just move on to the next section. Okay, in this section, I decided to try to show you how I packed bearings. This is how I was taught to do it. The way I've been doing it for 35 years or longer. You just goop your palm full of grease, and you just use your palm. You force it in. You force it in. You just keep pressuring it in to get it into all the tolerances, to get it throughout the entire bearing, or in this case, a CV joint. I didn't used to use the rubber gloves. I started wearing these black nitrile gloves when I do things like this, or greasy things, because it takes forever for me to get my hands clean again, and I don't like walking around looking like I'm dirty. Well, anyway, Just thought I'd show this. Keep doing that, and eventually it'll bubble up out of the ball bearing chases. Okay, in this section, I just wanted to show that I got it all packed full. It started coming up out of the ball bearing chases, and then I went ahead and filled the bowl even fuller. Um, that's the Super Tech. I used the marine grease. Uh, the books say to use water-resistant grease on this stuff, so what's more water-resistant than lithium-based marine grease? Super Tech, Walmart. Anyway, it's time to pop this CV back onto the axle and move forward with this project. Okay, in this section I went ahead and put the CV on the other end with the boot out of the way to show that when you press that in, it oozed that grease up through the chases completely. So it's got good coverage. Let's move on. Okay, in this section I've got the CV put back onto the wheel end of the axle. I got the boot pulled up onto the CV as it's supposed to be. It's packed. I packed that boot with grease, both sides actually. I put extra grease in the boot. This is me just driving it on home. You line the splines up and pop it right in. It's slicker and snot. Now I got to put those go to hell bands, clamps on there. Yeah. Next time I'll know to order the type of clamps I want in addition to the kit. Okay, in this section I got the boot completely on. I got those marvelous clamps on. Oh yeah, see, I'm pointing at it. Isn't that nice? It it wobbles a lot better. It's a lot smoother now, so I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I took it back apart and cleaned it out as well as I did. So should be failure and maintenance free for a while, as long as the boots hold up. You know how these rubber boots can be. Let's move on. Okay, I got this thing all buttoned up now. It's really a shame that the audio didn't get recorded throughout this. Um, you missed some great music, and you missed some extremely colorful metaphors. I wove them like a painter does on tapestry. It was beautiful. Anyway, got her all buttoned up. It's done. These plastic Polaris guards out here. I've got some highway signs made out of a nice, good aluminum, strong. Thinking about popping them off and maybe fabricating some replacements. Put them on there, paint them. Be a lot sturdier. Anyway, I'm glad this is done. Oil changed, filter changed, air filters changed, lubed from front to back, boots changed. It's been a good project. Thanks a lot for watching.